Hey guys, we're Jess and Jeff from Two Moose Design, and in today's video we're going to show you 5 projects you can make and sell using your CNC. For our first item, we're going to be making some trivets, or hot plates for hot pans and such. We're going to be making it out of this piece of cherry. We're going to be able to fit 2 on here, and this is about 0.7 thick. And we cut these with a 1/4 inch bit. This is one of the longer carves. They're about 9 minutes each trivet, but they're pretty easy to finish on the back end. For the hold down method for the trivets, we're going to use some makeshift double-sided tape, which is just masking tape, and super glue. So to finish them off, we're going to do a 3/8 round over on the edges and then sand them and oil them up. You could leave them square if you wanted to. We just like the profile that this gives.
And for the next item, we have kitchen utensils. If you buy the files on our website, you will have multiple other shapes, but for the demonstration, we're just going to make the spoon and the spatula. These are out of sapele, and for bits, we're going to use a bull bit and a downcut bit. We'll also have links to all the bits down in the description. These take about 9 minutes to make. Okay, so this is what they look like fresh off the machine. This stuff actually looks pretty good, but I'm gonna give them some little further shaping with this guy back here. If you don't have anything fancy like that, you could just do like a round over on the bottom or just throw some 80 grit on the sander and start going. But this does pretty quick work of it, so let's get going. Okay, so after about 10 minutes of shaping, you can see I made some pretty good progress. I still have a little bit of sanding to do with higher grits, but for the most part, that's pretty much it. So we'll show you guys how we finish these when we finish the rest of the items.
So this one's for all you book lovers. Next up, we have the Book Buddy, or the page holder opener. And what's really nice about these is that you can make a lot of them with not that much wood. So we're going to be able to fit 5 of them on this chunk, and it's going to take about 7 minutes carve time. We're using a 1/4 inch downcut bit to cut these all out. So there's not too much to these. We're going to cut the tabs out, give them a quick sanding, and oil them up.
And the next item on the list are these modern sleek coat hooks. If you follow us on Instagram, you've probably seen me showing these off. They're pretty cool. They're nice, simple design. This is another one you could pump out a bunch of these at a relatively quick rate just because they're so small and easy to cut, and it doesn't take much wood. I actually hung from one of these on the stud, so let's cut a bunch of these out and then I'll show you guys how we hang them. here's one of the pieces we cut. I just quickly sanded this. And these are just threaded inserts. We're gonna go ahead and sink one of these into the back and then use these hanger bolts to attach them to the wall. If you don't like this method, you could do some sort of keyhole slots on the back and it would just clip on the wall like that. But this is the best method I've found that's the strongest, and you can't pop it off with any upward pressure. All right, so let's hang this thing on the wall. We're just gonna hang it in my shop because I don't wanna punch a bunch of holes in my house. So we're just gonna pre-drill a hole. You can buy one of these fancy drill bits on Amazon for like $6. I'll link it in the description. And this just screws in here like so, and then you just drill it in, super easy. But if you don't wanna buy the bit, when I first did this, I just put 2 nuts on here and just tightened it together and used a wrench to just screw it into the wall. So now one thing you might notice so we screw this on, and if you're worried about this scratching your wall, you could just put a little piece of parchment paper or regular paper in between there, and that would help prevent it. But as you can see, it doesn't really mess much up unless you really over tighten it.
The fifth and final item is this cutting board holder, which also works for tablets if you want to play on your tablet while you're eating your cereal. What I really like about these is that they come apart, so it makes it great for displaying cutting boards when you're at a booth or selling your items somewhere, and it makes it nice to just display them at home. Easy peasy.
And we also have a bonus item for you. In our last video, we had a mallet file, which was super popular. So to cap this video off with a little bit of bonus, I came out with 3 new mallet files. So if you guys are interested in these, you can find these on our website. All right, let's talk finishing now that all of our items are made. So with small stuff like this, I don't really like to cover it in poly just because I want it to have that nice handmade real wood feel. So I tend to go towards the more natural looking finishes. Osmo's a great one, Rubio's a great one. Also, for a lot of stuff I just use cutting board oil and this furniture finish. I actually have two tubs, one with the furniture finish and one with the cutting board oil. And that's for this small stuff, usually I just dunk it in there and call it good. So for these, I'll show you in a second, but I just dunk them in the box and just let them kind of dry off for a day and then they're pretty much good. I'll do the same with this. So for the book buddies, I would not recommend a product like this because after some research, I saw people that make these, they do not recommend using an oil finish. This would be fine because it dries and hardens, but these will probably leach into the book pages. So what I did is I just sprayed a couple coats of poly on here and these are good to go. I just put a glove on and just kind of sprayed it and then just did each side. So this is the spatula we made, and this is one we've actually been using in our home for multiple cooks now, and you can see it already leached some color and took on some stain from like a curry we made. I just put the cutting board oil on there because I knew it was food safe and it was easy to do. I'm probably going to explore different options since it did lose color and did take on some staining, so I'll probably check out like a tongue oil or maybe something along those lines. But any of these products are good, use whatever you want. I would just avoid any oil products like that on the Book Buddy. when I was doing research for this video, I found these Trivets. I thought these were super cool. I'm just gonna use something like this because you're gonna put the hot pan on it and it's gonna probably dry out anyway. So I'm super curious to see how these hold up, as these are pretty popular and I really didn't know what they were. So I'm excited to try these out. But yeah, that's kind of it for finishing. Same with the mallets. Anything like this, tongue oil, furniture finish would be great on the mallets. And I think that's it. And that's the end of the video, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you're interested in making any of these projects, we do have files available on our website that do come with DIY plans to make it as easy as possible. But you do not by any means have to buy our files. You can just use this as inspiration, and you can find more information to that all in the description.
And also in the description below are any links to any tools or bits that we used for the video. So check it out and hope you have a great day. We're going to start with an 1/8 inch downcut bit to cut the holes for the magnets. And then for the sake of not changing the bit, we'll use the same one to cut the profiles. These pieces get magnets as well, so we're going to use the same bit again. Then we switch to a 1/4 inch bit to cut the slots and the profile.
And then to glue this stuff together, I used a little bit of Tight Bond CA glue and then a little bit of Quick and Thick for strength. I just super glued the magnets in, but also double check that they're the correct way.
So this dice tower took about 15 minutes to cut on the CNC. We used 1/4 inch walnut for the base and 1/2 inch for the top, along with some 1/4 inch pieces on the inside for the fall. There's little magnets on it that hold the base on and also keep it stored nicely. My favorite effect is the waterfall effect it has when you drop the dice in.
For all these cuts, we're using the Onefinity Masso Elite. This is the Foreman series with the Pone spindle. And the next item on the list are these cool little dog lamps. You could make multiple different animals if you really wanted. I'll probably come out with a few different types. And our files come with a couple different types of ears and a different tail. This one's made from walnut, covered in tongue oil. And this one is white oak with Osmo white. We're gonna go ahead and cut all the 1/4 inch pieces and 1/2 inch pieces with this 1/8 inch down cut. And this is the only section that gets glue, and then just double check that all the pieces look correct. There's a lot of ways you could glue together the head, but adding miters with my joiner was the fastest and easiest route. Then a little bit more Tight Bond, and I'm just going to use tape as a clamp. The entire thing is screwed together with these threaded inserts, which allows it a little bit of mobility. So this took about 15 minutes to cut. We used 1/2 inch pieces for the body and legs, and then 1/4 inch pieces for the head and the ears. And you can see it's just got a little lamp in there. This would make a super cool gift for a kid or even a project with your kids. Let them paint it and do whatever they want.
So the third item we have are these little keepsake boxes. Each of these took about 10 minutes to cut. You can engrave little designs on them or whatever. We have all different sizes. This one's for like pencils. Got a couple different business card sizes. And you can just put some jewelry in them or whatever. They make nice little gifts. We have little magnets in them that help hold the tops on. We used a 3/4 inch straight bit for the cavity on this one, but you could use a bowl bit for a rounded effect. Then we used a 1/4 inch down cut to clean up the corners. We also used it for a cleanup pass on the bottom of the trays. Unfortunately, the offset cut pattern left a little whiplash chatter, but changing this to a raster toolpath would have eliminated these marks. We use the same bit to cut the profiles, and finally an 1/8 inch bit for the magnets. The possibilities with these are endless. You can customize them many different ways with sizes and engraving or lasering different designs on the front. I think these would sell really good at like a fair or market. We have a bunch of different shapes, and I like that there's the magnets to help really hold them together.
And the next one, these are pretty simple but little toaster tongs. I like to use these for Cheetos. If you're chopstick illiterate, these are the key to life. I also saw Hamilton, he has a similar design to these. He puts a little magnet on them and keeps them right on the toaster. I cut 3 of these in 8 minutes, super easy, great gifts. You could even put people's initials on them or whatever you want. And for the tongs, we're gonna use a 1/4 inch down cut. So these don't use up much wood. You could cut a ton of these out of a bunch of scraps. I cut 3 of them in 8 minutes. This one I used about 3/4 inch wood, and it's a little harder to squeeze. This one's like 1/2 inch wood, and it's a little easier to squeeze. I just think these are great little gifts. You could sell 3 for 12 bucks or whatever you think they're worth. They require pretty much no prep work. Just a little bit of sanding to get them smooth, slap tongue oil on them, and you're good to go. I'm telling you guys, try it.
The next item on the list are these wooden colanders. What I like about this design is that it's got a little lip so you can put them on your pots to strain your water. We used about 3/4 inch wood for these. They took about 10 minutes each on the CNC. To remove all of the material, we used a 3/4 inch straight bit. Then we switched over to an 1/8 inch down cut to cut the slots in the outside toolpath.
And that's all 5 projects, guys, but we have a bonus item for you every time we kind of revamp one of the popular items from the last video. And in the last video, utensils were popular. So I made these ones, no 3Ds needed, 100%. I used a bull bit for the inside. I think I cut 2 of them in 12 minutes, and then it's just a bunch of shaping and sanding. But you can easily customize these. These make great gifts for like weddings or cookouts or whatever. Show up with a couple of these, give them with their names on them, everyone's happy. And we also threw in this little baby butter knife and a few different shapes. I used a 3/4 inch bull bit and the fluting tool path to create the slant for the spatula. And the same bit with a pocket tool bath for the spoonchula and spoon. Then for the finishing touches and profiles, I used a 1/4 inch down cut. I made like 3 versions of this butter knife, and this one was way too big.
And that's the end of our video, guys. We hope we inspired you to create some cool projects. And if you want to check out any of these files, they're available to buy on our website. If you have Vectric, they include the carved files as well.
Also, everything we use in this video will be linked down in the description along with all of our CNC bits and such like that. And all of our CNC files come with a set of plans and a PDF to help you get started as fast as possible.
So the first project we made was this 4-bottle wine rack. This took about 10 minutes on our CNC, and the only bit we used was this 1/4 inch down cut.
Now this piece didn't go quite as planned. My wasteboard's getting pretty chopped up, so the tape didn't have a great hold, and right here it kind of broke free. This doesn't happen very often, but it happened, so we're just gonna cut a new one. And then just give it a quick rough sanding ahead of time, because once it's assembled, it's not gonna be very easy to sand. And then I just added a tiny bit of glue to each joint, trying to avoid squeeze out. The joints are pretty tight, so it probably didn't even need it. This little rabbit joint down here definitely needs it though, so just put enough in there to hold it nice and tight.
And for the second item, we have a mallet. Every woodworker needs a mallet, and especially one you can just carve on your CNC. This mallet took about 12 minutes. We only used one bit, and that bit was an 1/8 inch down cut.
I just use masking tape and super glue to hold my stuff down. It works great. My wasteboard's getting pretty cruddy, so it doesn't hold quite as well. You could even see the pieces kind of moving in the last shot, but double-sided tape works just as well. You can clamp it down, whatever works best for you. I cut several wood types at one time just so I could kind of have a variety of when gluing these together, and I just kind of snug these up. You want the bottom to be tight, but a little space on top for the wedge to expand that joint, and then you just clamp it together. And then once that's dry, I just head it over to the miter saw. I set the fence to 3 degrees, I believe it was, just to kind of put a little angle on there and clean up all that gunk. And then I head it over to the belt sander and just smooth out the top and the bottom. And then I just use this 3/8 round over bit again. You could use a chamfer bit or whatever you want. There's a ton of options here, or just leave it square. Then just smack that wedge home and then just cut it flush, or leave it proud. Some people like to leave it proud and then chamfer the edges, but it's just easier to cut it flush.
So the next project we made were these plant stands. These took about 7 to 15 minutes to cut out, depending on the size. And again, the only bit we used was this 1/4 inch down cut.
So we used a domino to assemble these, but you could easily just screw it from the outside or just use dowels, whatever you'd like, and whatever's easiest to you. And then it's just a half lap, and really to lock this in place, I just did a countersink bit and then just added a regular screw, and that really holds it together nice and tight. And that's it for the plant stands. Nice and simple. They didn't take very long to cut, and if you are interested in our files, the files will come with a small, medium, and a large version. Here you can see the large and the medium version.
So for the next project, we have these little soap trays. These took about 6 to 7 minutes each to carve. These are great because you can use up little pieces of scraps that you have in the shop. And we used an 1/8 inch down cut and a bowl bit for these.
These are great because they don't require much wood, so small scraps are great to use up. And if you just look on Google for soap tray or soap dish, there's tons of examples out there you can use for inspiration. And then again, just to finish them off, we just did the 3/8 round over bit again, and just to give them a nice little extra profile on the bottom.
And for the fifth and final item, we have this maze. This is great for kids or anyone looking for a challenging little maze to keep their mind busy. This one took a little longer than most just because I had more intricate design. It took about 25 to 30 minutes. And the only bit we used was this 1/8 inch down cut.
So I lied. I did use another bit. To put the start here, I did use a 60-degree V-bit, but this is optional. And a lot of times when using the CNC, you'll get these little fuzzies left behind from the bit. Some woods are worse than others, but these little wire brushes work excellent to help remove them. So this maze is relatively simple, but you could always just replace this maze with a different one. If you go on Google and look up printable mazes, I believe it was, there's a ton of them. Super complex to super easy. Or you can just skip the maze completely and just hop the ball right over the maze. Winner. And then we just sanded everything to 150. These are all smaller items, so you don't really gotta go crazy. Just keep everything nice and simple, just so it's smooth to the touch and you'll be fine. And then to finish everything, we just finished it with Walrus Oil Furniture Finish. Nice and simple finish, easy to use. And for stuff like this, we're just pretty much protecting it from water and giving it a nice color.
All right, my friends, first item on the list, cutting boards. Everyone loves cutting boards. So this is just a plain, simple edge grain cutting board. I make these out of scraps. The same thing with this one over here. And for this one, all I did was use a cove bit or a dish bit to cut the juice groove. And then the same thing with this one, but this one I cut into a little bit different shape, and that's what's nice about cutting these on the CNC. You can do perfect circles, weird shapes, and you'll always have that juice groove perfectly where you want it, versus trying to cut it by hand or making some sort of jig. It's just a lot easier just to do it on the CNC if you have one. So now I'm gonna show you guys what bits I used, and then a little bit of cutting action. And the first bit. So I use this to cut the juice grooves. This is a 3/4 inch dish bit, or bowl bit, whatever you wanna call it. You could also use a cove bit. A 1/2 inch bit would work just fine. The 3/4 inch is a little bit big for the juice groove. And then the second bit I use for cutting out the cutting boards if it's a weird shape is this 1/4 inch down cut. A 1/4 inch up cut will work just fine too, but the 1/4 inch down cut doesn't shred the ore mask, which I use a lot. I can show that in a different video. And the next item on the list, baby catch-all trays. I call these baby trays. I make these 100% out of my scraps and my offcuts. And it's just a great way to use up your pieces. These are a small snatch or grab item. I'll sell this here specifically for like 60 bucks. but you price them however you want. And I'll probably do a deep dive video on how I make these exactly, just so you can replicate these. I've cut them in the shape of cats. You can pretty much get as creative as you want with these. This one's just a simple round one. It's like 8 inches and it has a funny little saying in it. But yeah, I'll show you guys how we're gonna cut these and what bits I used. So for the first bit, I used this. It's a 3/4 inch straight bit. You've probably seen these, just a regular router bit, nothing fancy. But I use this as my roughing bit and it removes the bulk of the material quite fast. And then I use a dish bit. You can cut the whole thing out with the dish bit, but it leaves a little bit of a rougher bottom. And this adds the nice little cove on the inside. And then to cut out the trays, again, I use a quarter inch down cut. Up cut works just as well. And then for the fine details, for the most part, I use a 90-degree V-bit. I mean, it depends on the engraving, but for the most part, I would say this is my most used V-bit. 30, 60, 45, and 90 are pretty much all I use.
Here we have our third item that you can use your CNC for. We make CNC clocks. This is one design. There's also this nice big blank spot in the middle where you can add family names or monograms, anything to your customer's desire. These are the bits that we use to engrave the CNC clock. I use an 1/8 inch downcut bit to cut away most of the material, as well as the hole in the center of the clock and the circles around the design. And then I go in with the 90-degree bit and finish up all the small details. So here we have our fourth example. This one is an Ottoman tray. We can customize these any way you want with a CNC. On this one, we did a monogram. You can do family names, any sort of customization that the customer wants, and we even did cutout handles on this one. So these are the bits that we used. We started with a 1/4 inch down cut to cut out the handles, and then we went on to the 1/8 inch down cut to cut out most of the material on the engraving. And lastly, we used this 90-degree bit to do all the detail work.
The next item on the list is coasters. Coasters are an easy thing to make. You can make them with a minimal amount of scraps. I made these 4 coasters here, and these took 7 minutes to cut out 4 of them, which isn't very long at all. We personally don't make very many coasters just because a lot of people sell them and they sell them already pretty cheap. So for me at this current moment, they're just not really worth the time it costs to go into them. So I'm gonna keep these ones for myself. You can see nice clean coasters with strips of scraps. I also put a cool little design on the bottom of each one. You can get as creative as you want. I guess you could call these little grippers. And we have a 1/4 inch down cut. I use this to cut out the entire things, no bit change needed. Just a 1/4 inch down cut to cut out the design along with the cutting out the coaster itself. Thanks for checking out our video, guys. Make sure you guys hop on over to Instagram, give us a follow over there. If you guys have any ideas for any future videos, let us know down in the comments. Thanks for checking out our video.
Make sure to like this video and subscribe.
And all that other stuff. Smash that like button.
Smash it!